Mate, what is with all these NRL fantasy podcasts? They all sound the fucking same. Welcome to the Echo Chamber.
Good evening. Welcome to our TLT Buy Swap Sell podcast Tuesday night. My name's Bryce. You're listening to the Echo Chamber. Joining me this evening is our Ginger representative. How you doing, Rudley?
Oh, mate, living the fucking dream.
And also on the podcast, we've got Jay-Z. How was your week, mate?
Pretty good, mate. Started off a bit grim, but ended up going up a whole rank, so can't complain too much.
When you're in single digits, mate, one rank's huge, right?
I'm still in double digits, but I'm hovering around that top 10, yeah.
So, speaking of which, what is your rank this week, and how many trades do you have left?
So I'm 12th at the moment. Last 3 weeks have been 11th, 12th, and 13th. So hopefully it's 10th this week and not 14th. But I'm planning to make 3 this week as of right now.
And that leaves you with how many?
That will leave me with 11, I think. Yeah, that leaves me with 11. And I need to make at least 2 or 3 more next week.
Yep.
And then I can kind of cruise to round 18.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Knock on wood, you know.
Yeah. Right. So, Rudely, after just hearing about how amazing Jay-Z's killing it, you want to bring us all back to earth and tell us how a normal person is playing the game?
Thank you for that backhanded compliment. I really appreciate that. I'm sitting 798 as rank. I've got 13 trades before I trade this week. Looking at 3 trades at the moment. Might do fourth depending on a couple of things I've got brewing in as ideas, but I haven't quite firmed on that because I have a couple concerns for next week with availability of some of my players. So I kind of want to keep my options open at the moment.
Yeah.
Getting there. I'm trying to get for that top 100, which is my goal for the year, but it's looking a bit further and further away as the season goes on.
Yeah.
So your rank's not that bad, mate. 798. That's pretty good at this stage of the season.
And
yeah, but I've just got a couple concerns about round 18 in particular, which is I'm just a little bit wary of.
Yeah, fair enough.
you're about 200 points behind the top 100.
Yeah, that's a lot to catch up, really.
Yeah.
Especially when we don't have the benefits that we're getting from this Origin period.
The big
price. Yeah, because there's so few people playing, so few players playing per round, the differences in scoring isn't as large as what it used to be.
Yeah.
So, you're seeing some increases here if you're averaging above the average, but it's not as widespread as it used to be in the previous years. So, I just think it might be a little bit harder to catch up that 200 points. But saying that, there's still a whole lot more of the season to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll be left.
Fair point.
You'll be left with about 10 trades, you said, if you go with 3.
Yeah, so I mean, just to touch on that, for example, it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing in the case of, let's say Fletcher Sharp and Dylan Lucas, right? Absolutely shat the bed this week, but basically everyone had them. And there was no real, because we were only playing 13 players, there was no real opportunity to loop them out unless you had a Herbie or something. But even then, you're kind of who's looping Dylan Lucas? Even Fletcher Sharp, fresh off a 98. So good and a bad thing, especially when everyone's traded in Kaloa Matangi, and it just means there's so little wiggle room. And basically, you needed a pod to not play Sharp or something to make ranks this past week. And
thanks for that segue, because that's exactly what I did, because I don't own Sharp. And I gained a few ranks, about 400-ish. So I've moved into 2,210, so nowhere near as good as these other boys. In saying that, I am only 120 points behind Ridley. So the gap between the top, the 700 mark and the top 100 is way bigger than the gap between 2-3k and that inside the top 1,000, which is interesting. So there's a much bigger block of people there. I've currently got 14 trades. I'm looking at making 2 trades this week. Leaves me on 12, so hopefully that puts me in a better stead coming into the run home. A couple extra trades there. That's what I'm banking on.
Some quick math right there.
Hey?
No, I just love that. I have 14 and I used 2, so
That's
now I have 12.
Yeah, right. Quick math. Well done.
You use your hands with that one?
No, I had to take my socks off. We're dealing with it above 10, mate. Got to sort this out.
That's true.
Look, so my trades this week that I am planning, as I said, is 2. Going to get rid of Munster after he didn't impress me. I think it's time for him to go. And I'm going to move on Toya after a little chat in Discord today. And I'm bringing in Couchman and Aiken. So
Nice.
just some solid upgrade trades that hopefully I can hold for the rest of the year if their roles stay the same.
Yeah, you'd expect them to both be season-long keepers.
Is there no concern Aiken will at some point shift back to centre, or are we very confident that his whole purpose for the rest of the year will be edge?
I mean, I think if they're going to do it, they're going to do it when all these guys were out. Instead of like blooding, new people in their positions.
And you would think that Jack Wyden and Campbell Graham are the favoured centres in that team.
Yeah.
So if Aiken's going to have a spot, it should in theory be edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bennett sort of identified a few weeks ago that the way forward is Kaloamatangi at prop, and as long as he's playing prop, then Aitken has to play edge, because otherwise you're playing like Tallis Duncan and, I don't know, miscellaneous, like Jacob Host maybe, who has been in the Shadow Realm the entire season. So
he still exists.
And you can't get rid of Kaloamatangi from prop because he's basically the best middle in the competition when he plays it.
Absolutely killing it.
I agree, but he absolutely hates playing there. That's every bit of mailers that he absolutely despises being a prop, and you'd have to think that it's not sustainable being there for forever. But he's just so much better there than he is when he plays edge. Like, so much better. It's not even comparison. It really feels like last year's Zach Lomax moving center to wing.
If
the
difference,
it's just like.
Sorry,
right. Look, I was just going to say, if the difference is between him playing prop and not playing at all, I know where he's playing.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, like, and Bennett said it a couple of weeks back, it's like it just takes all the thought out of playing for him, and when he just sort of doesn't have to make a lot of decisions, because edge back rowers in the NRL need to make a lot of decisions every game. When his job is just get the ball, run, and tackle, you can see how good he is. He's run for over 200 meters 3 weeks in a row. And I know there are some people that are like, oh, he's just a stat patter and he's just playing big minutes. But like, look at the difference he's made to South. They had no right to beat Brisbane a couple of weeks back against Paynas and Carrigan. And he stepped up and he was their best player.
I just want to confirm and put it out on record. So you're calling the big lad that can run for 300 meters against the forward pack dumb and can't make decisions? Is that, you want to put that out there?
That's what Wayne Bennett said, not me. Don't put words into my mouth. I was quoting Bennett.
Does everyone have Jay-Z's address? Need to send it to Colo. He needs to pay me with it.
I love Kaloamatangi. He's a beast.
Oh, he's so good. I'm very happy I brought him in last week despite my concerns. I don't think I'm tempted to get Aiken this week because.
What are your trades?
My trades at the moment are Hosking to Cook, Katoga to Lawson from the Dragons, Hubner to Drinkwater or Karaz. If I stick with Drinkwater, I can, in theory, push White to Aitken. And I kind of like those trades because Aiken would give me a keeper edge that I really need for round 15 instead of having to play White when I really don't trust him to play very well. Coming back from injury, if he even plays at all. And I think the idea of bringing in a keeper is also a very favourable idea. I'm just not certain about Aiken, as I've voiced my concerns, but I think in theory, there's not really any reason that Aiken should lose that spot, bar an injury to a centre. And even then, we've seen that Bunnies don't really want to move Aiken unless they have to.
Yeah, well, to counter that point, I think they had Fletcher Myers playing centre the other week, and Whiten's back this week. There's strong mail that they're going to be signing Taylor May very shortly, so I don't think that's much of a concern.
You don't think it's too late to be buying Aiken now?
No, because
It'd be nice to have done it a couple weeks ago, but
for sure. But he's a 55-point scorer, so there's still not quite 100k, but like 70 to 80k value left in him. So it's not too late. Again, you probably should have got him 2 weeks ago, like I did. But hey, we can't all be Jay-Z. Superstars.
Speaking of predicting the future, what are your trades this week, mate?
So I'm still toying around with what I'm gonna do, but Hosking to Cook is basically locked in. And then there's a couple of guys, like I want Couchman this week, but how I'm going to fund that, I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm considering like a Tallis Duncan from the Bunnies or Nathan Lawson from St. George or even Latu Fainu, even though he's named on the bench. I'm still fairly high on him as a buy. And if he's a late swap to the starting side for Heath Mason, then I'll definitely be doing that.
Yeah, right.
I like Fainu as a cash out, but even if he gets a late start to the 6, unless you really need him this week to cash out, I think you're content to wait till around 16. But it's just another person you have to carry through round 15, in my mind.
Yeah, but I'm not convinced that Lawson's going to hold that spot for very long. I mean, he's won it for this week, but I mean, like, if games against the Knights shouldn't really count towards how secure you are in your football side, you know?
I'm with you. I don't think that Lawson's probably the best cash out to ever exist, but I need someone to play centre for round 15 and round 18. And
Well, that's because you're selling...
It's either him
But you're selling Kit, right?
Oh, Kit could play 18. I wasn't never going to hold him that long. He was going to get sold in round 15 because he doesn't play 15, and I can't carry him through that.
I'm saying you're selling Kit.
I don't think Para play 18 either.
No, but you're selling Kit this week, and that's why you need a centre.
Well, I don't need a centre this week. I need a wing fullback this week because Teddy's on bye. And Drinkwater or Carraz are really the main options I'd be targeting, and I need to free up cash to do that. So KK to Lawson frees up about 300k. And it gives me a centre I can play in those times whilst giving me a keeper wing fullback.
Yeah.
Like, Lawson could very much blow up in my face, and if he does, whatever. It is what it is. But I think it's this time, maybe a couple of risky plays are probably in order to try and gain those ranks if you're pushing for a higher rank than where you're at.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
as you say, I don't think Lawson Lawson's definitely with a lot of risk. Yeah. But I also don't think Sloan is really that great on the wing. So I don't think it's a hard proposition to accept that Lawson could hold that spot.
Right. Yeah, he definitely could. I mean, I'm not going to deny that it's a possibility. It's just, I don't know, it's a bit of a roulette with St. George's outside backs at the moment. I don't know if they've quite figured out what their best 17 is. He should at least have his spot for next week and this week. With Holmes likely going back to the Queensland side. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it that doesn't feel right.
Well, now that Jay-Z said that, it's time to abandon all hope.
Get off.
Get Lawson back. Lawson ACL confirmed first minute. Just get the fuck out.
If the trade's not Jay-Z approved, it's not Jay-Z approved.
What?
We'll get into the first game. Knights and Manly. Got a few new faces on the Knights bench. You want to talk us through them, Jay-Z, or what you know?
Sorry, let me pull up team lists. I saw JJ McEwen was on the bench. I was really surprised that he didn't get a run sooner. Like he looked quite good in the few games he played earlier in the year, especially against the Bulldogs. I thought he really looked like a damaging back rower, more so than like Kai Piss-Paul has for weeks.
Yep.
I don't know a single thing about Elijah Salesa Leamoana, I would assume that's how it's pronounced. And then Tom Cunt. I don't know, man. It's hard to give a shit about I'm a nice fan. It's really hard to give a fuck about this team anymore. Like they're just so pathetic.
For me, it's really good to see Dylan Lucas has not just been shifted back to the centres, and that they've actually brought someone in. But that was my sort of fear there, was that we were going to get a Lucas game in the centres, but Kyle's been named there, so that's good for me, and for anyone that's holding.
He was there last week, wasn't
he? Yeah, but because they got smashed, mate. I sort of thought maybe there was a chance that, they did some punting, some mucking around, but I guess the whole no Leo Thompson, no Jack Hetherington sort of forces their hand into playing, Brody Jones at prop again. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a absolute schmozzle, man. Like, everyone gets in, like, no Saifidi, Thompson's out for 4 weeks. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why Mason Teague isn't getting a run. Like, we signed him mid-season and he's been going all right at Lock-in Cup, like, but we're playing fucking Brody Jones as a starting prop, and make it make sense.
Yeah. Tyson Frizzell and Brody Jones are just probably not it in the middle of the pack, mate.
I don't mind Frizzell. Frizzell's a hard worker. He's getting on in age. He's like 33.
Yeah.
But he's been a great servant for the club and a really good player for a long time now.
Yeah. Manly. Anything in Manly team you just want to talk about? I know you regret your Garrick buy, but
I must say I am so shocked and stunned that the second Jake Travojevic is back that Jazz Tavunga's ended up on the bench. Who could have foreseen this happening? What an unlikely and unprecedented occurrence this is.
So let me counter that. I don't think he'll start the game on the bench, but I think he might start at hooker.
You think he'll start at hooker?
Possibly. That's what he was doing earlier in the year.
I'm doing my podcast.
I guess Croker's back now. But
yeah, which is I think is a big thing because I think Croker will play pretty decent minutes.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. Like, it's really Manly's hooker rotation is really strange to me because, like, Simpkin is a capable 80-minute hooker and he's been playing like 45 to 60 minutes the whole year, and the few games he's played big minutes, like, he's absolutely killed it for them. And yet, for whatever reason, they're like, nah, Lachlan Croker, the bloke that barely has legs, is straight back into the starting side, lads. Get the fuck out of here, Jake Simpkin.
I actually don't mind Lachlan Croker. I actually think he's a pretty decent hooker. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know what the minutes is going to be between Lachlan and Jake Simpkin. I don't think Jazz is going to end up playing hooker. I'd be surprised if they drop Simpkin from the bench. I think that this has always been the plan they were hoping to do. Have Jake Simpkin playing as a kind of an impact bench hooker, and with Lachlan playing the big minutes. I am concerned about what Jazz's minutes will be this week, playing in the prop rotation.
You've made absolute bank on Jazz Tavunga, and you're just hoping for a miracle next week to get him named back in the starting line. That's how I look at it. You're going to take 1 week of pain with Jazz and then see what happens next week?
Oh, Gerber could easily find his way into the Blues team given the injury to Barnett.
Yeah, I think unlikely,
but it could happen.
I don't know if it is unlikely, to be honest. If you listen to what Daly said today, it was basically like either Steph comes in on the bench, or if Jake gets through this week, we'll definitely look at him. And then there's Terrell and Kaloamatangi as well. But he didn't seem as high on either of those guys. He sort of said, Barnett brings like a level of intensity to the game, which makes me think he'll actually go with Stefano over the other guys.
Isn't Daniel Saifidi back as well soon?
Well, you'd want him to play this game as an Origin coach. Like
he's also the wrong Saifidi. It's Jacob, the one that was being considered.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I know what you meant, mate.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah,
you tried.
Yeah, I don't think you wouldn't be selling Jazz this week.
No,
but
no way.
You would be laughing at anyone that bought Jazz last week, which I know a fair few people did.
I'd be laughing at someone who brought Jazz last week, but if you brought him round round 10 or whatever, people would probably...
The week I wanted to buy him.
Yeah, that was the week you got fucking super lucky, and you should like kiss some ass because you used your luck for this week, mate. Don't think there's anything else. Don't buy Lehigh. He's a trap because, Turbo's week to week. He'll probably be back next week, so don't fall into that. You brought Turbo. Ha ha.
Very compassionate here on the pod.
Yeah, fuck you.
We understand making mistakes. If you buy Jazz or Turbo, get fucked.
Yeah, dude. I don't own either, so no compassion from me, mate. Now to a thrash. Yeah, next game be a thrashing. Storm will put 50 on the Cowboys. They gotta come good, right? The Storm is it's a bit like it's a bit like a Penrith vibe down there at the Storm right now. Not really performing well, struggling to pick up results.
It's a night game, which Storm have been diabolical at this year, so it could favour. Because it's going to be dark by 6 o'clock. Very dark in Melbourne at the moment. So
yeah, I don't know if they have.
performance.
I don't know if electricity's gotten down to Melbourne yet either, so they might not have lights.
Oh, I mean, if the Storm have put up a terrible track record when this hasn't been a day game. So I think
it's fair.
If we buy into the hoodoo, maybe I'm just praying because I hate the Storm. But
no, I said a couple of weeks ago, like the Storm are at their most dangerous on like a Sunday arvo, or it might have even been last week's pod with you, Brycey.
Yeah.
That because I expected them to be playing the Titans on a dry track, but it ended up being torrential rain. But on a dry track, Melbourne are a very, very hard team to stop, and Cowboys are very hit and miss. Their defense isn't great, so it could really be a flogging, but also Cows have something about them at the moment where they just don't die. Like they're competitive with basically every team they play, and the last few weeks they've either been behind by a bunch of points and come back, or been ahead by a bunch of points and let the other team come back. So
if we play anything like we did in that last half last week, then it's well and truly over for us. The bookies seem to think we just don't have a chance. $4.45 the Cowboys. So yeah,
I think that's pretty good odds if you're a gambling man.
Yeah, like
it's just that back line for the Cows is really nothing that inspires.
Jackson Paulo, the hero we didn't know we needed. There he is. Came out with a 50.
What are your thoughts? Do you think Dearden's actually a 7?
Yeah.
Or does this feel like it's 2 6s? Because this feels like it's 2 6s.
It feels like 3
6s. A lot of teams seem to be running at the moment, which I really don't like.
I've said it before. I still don't think Drinkwater's a fullback. I think he's just a 6 cosplaying as a fullback. So I feel like we're playing 3 6s, and Tom Dearden's just the one that tells people where to go and calls what play.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think Drinky is an out and out fullback. I don't think Dearden is a true 7, but I think that Drinkwater's kicking game actually sort of covers over that. Like if you watched how they played on the weekend, a lot of the sort of midfield kicking Drinkwater actually did. Yeah. We spoke about this when we did the Sunday pod, but Drinky had the most kick meters out of any of the Cowboys spine members. So interesting to note.
Yeah, Drinkwater I think is literally going to be one of the most important wing fullbacks for the back end of the year.
As long as we stay competitive. Like he could come out and get a 30 in this game very easily. Like, this is not a game that I've got penciled in that Scott Drinkwater's going to do well in. And if I had a way to loop him, I probably would.
You say, I'm buying him this week, so I'm very excited for him.
He's not a bad, like, he's a good buy. And he could come out and get a 60. Like, as JC just said, we will either show up and play well and compete, or we'll just get absolutely hammered. So, you just flip a coin and see how the Cowboys go.
Yeah, I kind of think he's just too important to the Cowboys team. Like, he did have a down game the other week against Manly, but it was like one of the worst games of his entire career. I wouldn't expect him to play that poorly week on week. He didn't even play that well against the Tigers, quite frankly. Like, he had quite a few chances that he didn't nail. And like, if you look at the try assists and the try contributions, it was kind of all Eden and Purdue, apart from that one like individual try that he scored. But there are big scores ahead for Drinkwater, I think.
So, for Drinkwater, you look at, he's got the trifecta, right? He gets the run meters, he's got the kick meters now, he's got goal kicking. He's got the trifecta of base that you're looking for in a wing fullback, and then he can be really, really attacking. So he's definitely a buy. Break even's a bit high, 59. You're probably buying him at an expensive point right now. I think most of us brought him around that 600k mark or whatever it was a few weeks back. But yeah,
I think it's 656.
Actually, I paid 650 for him. Yeah, so he lost money. Yeah, he's a buy. He had that 18
bad price.
Yeah, no, he's good. I'll take it back. He's good.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything else. Don't get sucked in by anybody else in the Cowboys. I know their draws incredibly well, but I don't think there's anyone here that is like by me.
I
Right.
think there's one point of discussion this week, but it's coming up to maybe relevant to consider later. Is Jerome Hughes, who has gotten really cheap,
Yeah, we'll talk about him
but
soon.
I think that's probably something for after Origin, and you'd really want to see him putting some scores together because he hasn't really inspired this year.
No, but I think this will be the game to watch because last week he had the bulk of the kicking, and the weeks leading into round 12 or whenever they had their bye, Munster was actually taking like a lot of kicks, and against the Titans it was all Hughes. So if that keeps up, that's I think go time on Hughes. Whether he scores well or not, I think if he does the majority of the kicking this week, he'll be a very, very strong consideration for a buy in 16.
Yeah. 60 with a try, 46 base, pretty much.
Yeah, but Melbourne in the back end of the season are going to obliterate teams, and he'll be a part of a lot of the good that they do.
Yeah, he could definitely be a around 16 buy. Doesn't miss a game from there. Yep. See how he goes this week against the Cowboys. You know, he can quite easily score a hat trick against our shit team. Dolphins, Dragons, first game second game, Friday night. Interestingly, on the extended reserves bench, Plath and Jerry Marshall King, both back from injury. So see how they go throughout the week and see if they come into starting line or something. But I'm definitely watching Maxi Plath to see where he ends up.
Yeah, there was a bit of chat. He wasn't going to be back until like round 16. So I think if he plays, it'll be a bit soon and maybe his minutes won't quite be there. I mean, I think it's kind of unfortunate because he would have been a really good option if he was full fit in like round 11 or something when Gilbert went down.
Yeah.
But I think now it's kind of just gone past him a bit. And unless when he gets back to that lock spot, he's playing like 70 minutes a game, I think it's probably a next year proposition.
Yeah, because if he doesn't play 4 minutes till, like round 16, 17, you've then got 2 buys in front of you. So 18's a buy, I think it's 22 or something to buy. So 21.
Yeah. The only counterpoint to that would be if you don't have Herbie Farnworth, then you probably don't have any other Dolphins. So
yeah,
one of the easier teams to manage.
Yeah, it'd be about what you can buy with the same money for Plath, though.
Yeah, he's still expensive.
Yeah, he's 650.
Because he didn't really have many down games. Like I think he had the one bad game before he got injured, right?
Yeah, he's got a B of 73 at the moment. Like you'd want to watch for a week or two.
Yeah. But then
there's
again,
also
St. George Cows.
Yeah, there's also a bit of concern that when he comes back, he goes to the edge again. I mean, if you notice in this game, they've got Oren Keeley starting on the edge, which I think he might do. But that probably says to me that Plath will likely go back to the edge when he's full fit, and he'll move to lock after like 20, 30 minutes for Lemuelu.
Yeah. Watch the space with that one. Dragons, now we spoke about Nathan Lawson. The only downside with him is we're not 100% sure on his job security. Because you've got a fit guy waiting to take his job.
And I haven't really light the world on fire. His stats in reserve grade aren't anything particular. I think they're mid-30s from memory, which still gives him some value here. But he's really going to be just a buy that you're using predominantly to get you through the origin period, and then maybe if you're running low on trades, you're keeping him up as a backup center, hoping that he somehow manages to hold the position for the rest of the season. It's more kind of stop fix, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I haven't validated this, but his reserve grade stats are not particularly impressive. But, I mean, I didn't buy Katonga, and his reserve grade stats were shit, and he ended up killing it for quite a while. So it's not everything, and you're expected to do more work once you go to first grade from reserve grade. So I don't know. I just don't need like a center or anything, but I still might end up doing it. I think it might also depend on what the pack does. Like if every team is trading him in this week, then it's almost too risky to not buy him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Let's talk about the guy you're both bringing in this week, Damien Cook. And I take it because you need a 15 and an 18 hooker.
Yes, but also when Cook plays big minutes, he's one of the best fantasy players in the game. And yes, there've been injuries the last few weeks, but they've also been winning games when he's spent time in the middle at lock. And if you look at that bench, I think that continues at least for this week. Maybe when Jaden Sewer's back, it changes a bit. But if you look at all the middles, no one's really a big minute player. Like Pacific Tonga's played 20 odd minutes the past few weeks. And I think Blake Laurie's sort of a 30 odd minute guy, maybe 40 in this setup. But it kind of depends on Couchman's minute split. Like, is he going to spend 20 minutes on an edge and then go to the middle, or is he going to play 40 minutes on the edge and then go to the middle? Or it's interesting, but I think the way the bench is set up almost says that Cook's going to play lock minutes in this game.
I'm with JC here. I think the fact that I need a hooker for round 15 is a big sway on it. But as JC said, there's a lot to be excited about here. If Cook does manage to hold this role for a prolonged period of time, he is priced at 45, and we know that he historically averages plus 55 when playing 80 minutes at hooker.
Yeah.
It is that concern about, does he play that long? He is coming to the back end of his career. We've got little on the bench, so he has to go into lock.
Risk.
Yeah, it's risk here. And I think, as you can see, there's kind of a theme to what some of our trades are going to be this week, is that it's time to throw caution to the wind a little bit.
Yep.
And, play a bit more risky, see what we can do. Because if Cook does manage to hold this 80-minute spot for a prolonged period of time, he's going to put up keeper scores throughout then.
Well, he got
and it's going to be
70 the last 2 weeks.
I will say, though, I don't know that there is a ton of risk, especially if you don't already have a hooker for 15 and 18. Like, if you don't have Jazz, like I don't think any of us have Jazz, then there's basically no other option unless you want to buy Jazz. And if you're buying Jazz, I think you may as well just spend up and buy Cook. Like, worst case scenario, he scores 40 points a game in 60 odd minutes. But best case scenario, he's a 55-point keeper. And you get a backup hooker for the rest of the season.
You're hurting me, mate, because you know well and truly that I brought Reed Marnie in round 12 and regret.
Yeah, well, that was always my plan as well, but it didn't happen, and now Cook's an option. So
yeah,
I mean, Riley Smith also, I'm sure we'll get to Paris soon, but he is posting out 50 points a game at the moment, like just beasting it.
Yeah. So because I have Reed, and I'm 2k short of just that one move, I'm just gonna stick with Reed and hate my life every time he plays the game. So all the talk about him being dropped didn't happen. So I'll have to just ride that one out.
Nah, but I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah, same. Toby Couchman, definitely a buy this week. Looked good last week.
I'm not going to say definitely. Like, he's a strong buy. He's Toby Couchman. He's a PPM god, but there's obviously still that sort of question mark around his shoulder. Like, how easily will he aggravate it again? And I mean, I've been bitten in the past going too early on guys, like right before a buy round. Like, if look at Max King a couple of weeks ago. I bought him 1 week before the buy and he got picked for Origin out of nowhere. Couchman's not going to get picked for Origin, but he might re-hurt his shoulder and then all of a sudden you have to trade him back out next week. So while he's obviously a good scorer, if he's fully fit, there is also risk associated with him.
Break even at 60, his price isn't running away, so you can definitely wait.
Yeah. So I held Couchman, so I'm also going to jump in on the gatekeeping. Do not buy him. Let him remain sub 10% owned. I hear he's the biggest liability for injuries that's ever walked the earth. Also a terrible person.
All right.
I've also heard that.
Horrible.
He once
bloke.
told my grandma that she was ugly, so I think that's a really big
To be
relevant
fair,
Could
to be fair, he's not wrong. Sharks Warriors. I don't think there's too much to talk about in this game. So obviously there's going to be minutes because Holmate's got ACL gone, right?
funny, yeah, but
Their draw's not good, bye-wise. So Fisher Harris is probably the only one.
Fisher Harris would be the main beneficiary that's got some value, I reckon.
But can you bring
Halasima is going to continue to do well, but he's already made a lot of his money this year. Like, he's a cash cow that really went under the radar this year.
A lot of people got him.
She's 16% owned.
A lot of people got on him. Just no one in our circle did.
He's not well owned in the top 5,000, 5.56%.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, I think Halasima will be a big beneficiary, but like I said, he's made most of his money already. I think Aaron Clark solidifies his minutes a bit more.
Yeah, Fisher Harris for me, you just can't buy him with the two made. Like, I just can't afford. I just can't afford to have a middle sitting there doing nothing.
You could be tempted come round 16 for a keeper that takes you the run home.
Yep.
With only one buy, but I don't know. I think it really depends what your team's looking like. And again, how much do we really trust Webster to give JFH the minutes he needs? Like, we've had this issue for the beginning of the year.
I'm with you. I think 16 he becomes a real option. Like, he's actually really cheap for someone that could be a mid 50 point scorer.
He's priced at 42, has a B of 41, so he's not going to go too much before round 16. It's just I still have the concerns about minutes. The last two games he's put up much. Last two games he's played, he's put up 56 minutes, which is what we want to see.
Is 52 enough though?
52.
Yeah, so that's what he's averaged when he hasn't been injured this year. 52 minutes, and I think that's enough.
I think I think that it'll be very tempting to go to him come round 16.
Fisher Harris,
I might actually do horse to him.
Yeah, that's sort of my plan now. I don't need horse for round 18. Horse might be my ticket to get into Fisher Harris back into the.
I like that. That's a cash out. It gives you 100k to play with. Plus, in theory, you imagine JFH gives you a keeper for the rest of the year.
And I think scores are pretty much similar too, right?
They'll be similar scores.
Not a sideways. Not a sideways. That's not the first thought. I was going to say that sideways, but
because he's so cheap. I think something to come back to around 16. You definitely don't want to be buying him this week.
Anybody else in this game you guys interested in?
Not really. AFB's been named, even though he was in a sling a while ago, so maybe no concern for him.
Teague's back.
But, yeah.
Teague's back. Sione Katoa's back. They're both priced accurately. You don't really want them. The Sharks tied. They're just not really performing in
as well
as they should be. They're favourites in this game. What?
Yeah, the $1.49 favourites. Yeah,
I've tipped them.
Yeah. I expect the Sharkies to beat the Wilds this week.
I don't know. The only one I'd consider if you're really struggling for cash and you want sort of like a pod center is maybe Jesse Ramian. He's scored fuck all tries this year and is a traditionally pretty good scorer in the centers and is quite cheap at the moment. If you're desperate for a center come round 15 and you want someone that has potential to score big on any given week, then
I think you can
do worse.
I think you can wait a week. If you get through this week, you can definitely wait a week, break even at 47.
Because he's still coming off that injury against the Storm. I don't mind picking up Ramian later. But again, he's got that round 18 bye, which is an issue. The only other one that I'd mention just to keep an eye on, who we've all been keeping an eye on for this year, but he just is not coming good at all, even though he's still scoring a lot of tries, is Britton Nekera, who has gotten ridiculously cheap. He's now 527k.
Yeah, you can't even consider him at the moment, though.
No, he's being diabolical in fantasy. And it's coming off a lot of missed tackles at the moment. Like
Yeah. His tackles are down like 10 a game from last year, which is kind of crazy. But he was a big anti-pod for me on the run home last year. Like he had a bunch of really, really strong scores, and I didn't own him. So I'm glad to see him struggling. Fuck Nikora.
Yeah. Cost you. What did he cost you last year, mate? Was it first? Was it?
Yeah, just first place, I think he scored a 90 in the last round or something.
So
that sounds a lot like a skill issue to me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Broncos versus the Titans, final game Saturday night. Reece Walsh is back. Corey Jensen in the 8. I don't know.
How much is Jensen? Or a 2K? Yeah. I this Broncos side, there's not much to talk about. Like maybe we can look at Walsh in a couple of weeks. If he doesn't play Origin, look, if they're going to start winning games, it's going to be through Mim and Walsh. And Walsh's numbers were way down for the first 10 weeks, but that doesn't mean that he isn't a good enough player to bounce back eventually.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on him. Obviously, you wouldn't do it this week, but I think that's about it. Carrigan back at lock, don't think changes too much for him. He'll still be a big minute forward. Hetherington just needed to be dropped. He's just doing fuck all. I'm surprised he's even still in the 17. But Jaden Campbell's the real talking point of this game.
He certainly
either
is.
of you buying him this week, and why? And why would you talk someone out of it?
The buy. So I'm not buying him because of the buy.
Round 18 buy is dire for wing fullbacks and centres. I can't, in good conscience, buy him and somehow figure a way through it. I need that money to get drink water, or I need it. You could get drink water, you could get Karaz at the moment, who are both cheaper, who might score slightly worse, but they're going to play you both the buys coming up, the major buys. And again, JC, whilst he had a really good game on the weekend, you still want him back in the 7. The fullback spot, he's a good scorer there, but he's not as good as he has been. He averages 44.9 at fullback.
Yeah, I will say though, his role won't be the same as in previous years when he was fullback. Like he'll have a lot more kick meters, even against the Storm. Like while he didn't have the numbers that he would have at halfback, he still did have a fair few points from there. And quite clearly, their plan is to get him attacking both edges, and he looked quite dangerous in that game. 2 try assists and a try says as much, but he had all those attacking stats and only managed to 64. Whereas if he was doing that at halfback, he'd have 80 plus.
Yeah,
he'd be pushing 100. Because it's the issue is that there's no tackles here. He's got 7. Like he's got a try, 2 goals, 2 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, and 3 offloads to hand. Like again, if he was playing halfback, he'd have 25 plus tackles. He'd be closing in on that 80-90.
So if he wasn't 770,000, which is expensive, right? Then 100%. He's got the trifecta. He gets the run meters. He is getting kick meters, and he's got goal kicking, right? So he's got your base. It's just he's so expensive.
He's got goal kicking in a really bad team.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? Like they're coming up against the Broncos, who've lost 5 in a row, and they're paying $3.40. That says a lot about where the Titans are right now.
I don't know what the fuck Des Hasler has done to this team, but I really miss the days of Holbrook, where you always knew that when the Titans were playing, they might not win the game, but they sure as shit were scoring 20 points.
Yeah.
that was the Titans that was fun to watch, and it's why they're my second team, is because they throw shit to the wall and just have a crack. All attack, no defense. And it's not what they're doing at the moment. They look terrible in attack more often than not. On the weekend, they looked better than they have. But in recent most of the season, they've looked diabolical with the ball, unless there's a moment of individual brilliance.
But that's kind of how they've always been, though. Like, they've always just been individual brilliance. And this year, they've just had a severe lack of it, especially with Fafita out for most of the season.
Yeah, and Keeney out.
Huge injury toll. Injuries. Sam Verrills broke his arm, did it? Wrist? So
thumb or something.
hand, yeah. So
how long is he going for?
Rookie in.
just till round 17, I think. So not too long.
Rookie in there.
I'm also not convinced the Titans will line up this way, mind you. I think there's a fair chance that Chris Randall starts at 9 come game day, and they're trying to get an exemption for AJ Brimson. So good chance that he goes to fullback and we see Campbell at like 6 and Foran at 7 or something like that. So yeah, this team list is probably fake news.
Yeah, you
Fake.
wouldn't imagine Sean Murray, Mullany gets big minutes with Cleese Haas should be you'd imagine should be starting or getting decent minutes at edge. So Randall would have to go there, and Tina would play close to 80.
I've seen
Yeah.
people talking about Jermaine Jolliffe. I don't know why. And you looked into him?
Yeah, so I was one of the people that sort of tossed him up on Dissy the other day, just because I really need a third mid for round 15, and not necessarily round 18, because 18 is very easy to cover. And if you look at last week's game against Melbourne, Jolliffe played 60 odd minutes for a 50, and last year when he played that big minute forward role, he was basically a 50 every week. And if he can do that, even if only for a short period of time, then he can sort of fill that role in my team. In saying that, if you're going to buy someone like Jolliffe, you have to know why you're doing it. And when I make trades, and my logic behind making trades is always it needs to serve a purpose. I'm not just trading him in because I think he's going to score 50 points every game. It's because I think he can score 50 points on the bye round and maybe the round after, and then do whatever. I don't need him after that. He's sort of superfluous. But he plays that role in that bye round. In saying that, I'm probably not going to do it, given shout out to Beluga. Tallis Duncan is actually a pretty appealing option. He's just got dual position this week as well. So, yeah, I might give Jolliffe a miss, but I thought about him briefly.
Yeah. All right, so speaking of Tallis Duncan, that's a good segue, because they're our next game. Raiders versus the Rabbitohs, 2 p.m. Sunday. We'll talk about Rabbitohs first. Tell us, Duncan. Go through it. Talk to us.
Yeah, so he's actually he's not inspiring by any means. Like he's a bit of a plotter on the edge, but 80-minute edge plotters are still 40-point fantasy scorers. So he's priced in the low 400s. I'm not going to do it this week, and I think you'd be a brave man to trade him in against the Raiders when he's not the best defender, and the Raiders are a very lethal attacking team. But come next week, if he's still starting in the back row, which he probably will, like I don't know who else they even have, quite frankly. He's a 40-point scorer, and he's got dual position, and he's going to play 15 and 18. So you want
to buy him. So you don't want to buy him against the Raiders, but you want to buy him against Canterbury, Melbourne, and then Dolphins. Which side is Duncan on? The right side?
He's on the left, but the Bulldogs have a bunch of players out, so it's not that bad of a matchup, really.
Preston will be back.
Maybe.
Yeah, but they still have no critter. Preston will be back. What do you mean, maybe?
Preston will be back, and he'll be running at Tallis Duncan.
You hope so.
That's fine. Preston doesn't get that much ball anyway. Like, I think the Raiders are a far more dangerous matchup because they just do wild shit every game.
Yeah, I must say, just looking at him, I'm not overly convinced. Like, he's got a fair few low scores in an 80-minute performance that doesn't inspire. And if you're playing him in the bye, that can really do some damage to you.
I'd err on the side of caution if you already had Colomatungi and Aiken.
See, this is another sort of Jolliffe situation where you need to know what you're doing with the trade, because he's not going to be in your team come round 19. No, you hope that he can make 100k between now and round 19 while scoring 40 odd on a bye round. And that's all I need someone to do in round 15. I'm not bringing in like an AFB or a keeper, because I just think that's not a good use of money for my squad. And so I need someone that can sort of do a job basically just for 15, but if they can continue doing that job for a couple of weeks after, then happy days. And he's got a decent sample size on the edge, only one game under 30, and quite a few half decent scores in there too. So I wouldn't be too worried about him.
Well, if you're not buying him for this week, may I suggest an alternative that I'm currently enjoying and not death riding with all fear as I own him? Victor Radley.
Yeah,
He
I mean,
talked me into this boy, and you've left me for dead. Watching him walk up for a HIA last game, I think almost made me cry.
he passed it.
Oh, he's
passed
doing
the
well.
HO.
He's actually done well for me since I picked him up for around what was it, 13. It's not a buy for the faint-hearted, as you said. But he
No,
put up
exactly
he
right.
put up a 58 in round 12 and then a 41 last round. He's made how much has he made? He's made 35k already.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't hate that as an option as well, and he might be like the sort of last resort for me, but he's kind of a bit too expensive, and if I can get someone like Tallis Duncan who can do a similar job, I'm not going to say as good of a job as Victor Radley, but a similar job for 130k less, then I'm going to look that way.
Yep, fair. That's fair. I'm buying Ewan Aiken this week, but I'm buying him as a keeper for the rest of the year. So that's the reason why I'm buying him, and I think that's fair, as we spoke about earlier. Don't think there's anyone else in the Rabbitohs. Humphreys? Anyone looking at Humphreys?
No, but an interesting option because he's getting closer and closer to base price every week is Cody Walker. He is not inspiring, I'll say that much, but if you need a half for 15 and 18, you could do worse.
How is he 200?
You could, to be honest.
How is he 340k?
I think he'd be hard pressed to do worse.
Wow.
He's just had a really rough year, but it's Cody Walker. Like he can have big games where he sets up a bunch of tries and even scores a bunch of tries.
He just hasn't done that this year.
It's grim viewing so far, but who's to say that can't turn around?
Yeah, the last two were both injury-affected games. In all fairness to him, a 1 and a 12.
Yeah. Don't love it, but if he gets cheap enough, like he can be a 50-point guy. Like he's not going to be a 50-point guy this year, but he can post 50 points on any given round.
There you go. That's the take right there. He can post a 50-point score.
The definition of a boom or bust player, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, Raiders. You guys are both selling Hosking this week. He just hasn't done it. He's not getting the minutes.
He's playing a different role. Is the issue?
It's not so much the minutes. Like obviously the minutes are a genuine concern, but it's the fact that he's just not as damaging in the middle. Like he's not going to break as many tackles because he's not like that deadly of a runner.
Yeah.
But when he's on the edge, he's a good offloader and he's not a bad ball player. But when he's in the middle, he's a bit of a plotter from a fantasy perspective, and he's sort of just a tackle and meters guy.
Yeah.
And I pointed this out on Discord the other day. He has 82 kick meters that he definitely did not make during that game. So he was just randomly given 2 points by the stats guys this week. So thank you.
Stats guy helping us out. I'm going to hold him this week just because I don't need to sell him. I don't really have anyone to spend the money on, so I'm just going to hold this week and then reassess next and see what happens. I'm leaving I need one more mid for round 15. I'm just going to leave that to the latest as I can because the last thing I want to do is get bit by a weird fucking origin choice.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. I mean, he's not an urgent sell, but he's kind of scoring like 10 points lower than most people expected him to. And I don't need him in 18, whereas some people do. Like, I think my plan is to get Jacob Preston back in before round 18. And if I'm doing that, that means I have all of Aitken, Kaloa-Matangi, and Preston that are all available that round. So I just don't need him.
That could be my move next week, is upgrading Hoskin to Preston.
I read it.
Yeah, so that.
I want to remind you that Preston is very expensive. It's a 200k jump to get from Hosking to Preston.
That's okay because I can do a cash down. I got plenty.
He's also just a goat, man. Like he was averaging 60 before he got injured.
I know. I need Preston back quite badly. just because of how good he's been.
So
But man, it's gonna be hard to get him back in at almost 800k.
just so we can talk about it, I'm keeping Kit K this week because I'm going to trade. Like that's my plan is to cash him down next week, and then I can upgrade the other way because I don't need Kit K anymore. Like after this week, he's done.
Yeah.
So Kit Kat's gone.
Mhm.
Who was the favorite in that game? Raiders, heavy favorites. So yeah, I think this will be a good game to watch. I'm pretty excited to watch this one. Shouldn't be a blowout.
Should roast them.
Yeah.
The Raiders look really good, and just a shout out. Like even though like he did have a good fantasy score, but fuck man, Tamale is just such a jet of a player. Man, did you see that try assist he had? He had like 6 blokes on him and still managed an offload. Like he was the best player in that game outside of maybe Owen Paddy. Like there is a lot of talent at the Raiders right now.
He done well. Yeah, I like Tamale. Got to hold him. I think
It just makes that decision from the Raiders to sign Jaden Braley and renew Tom Starling even more weird when Owen Patty is clearly like banging down the door to play first grade properly as the starting hooker. I don't quite understand why
it's Ricky
done
Stewart.
both.
I like Starling. I think him and Paddy have been very good as a duo, but Jaden Braley makes 0 sense.
Like if they were losing Starling, it makes sense. But it just I don't quite get what that decision was there.
Yeah,
Maybe Paddy's too good for Ricky. Ricky just wants a guy that can pass and tackle, where Paddy can kick 40-20s, so fuck him. He can go play reserve grade.
Yeah. It's Ricky Stewart, mate. No one knows what goes on outside that brain.
Yeah.
No one.
He was amazing, though, Paddy.
Yeah,
I think he's got a huge future.
Panthers, Tigers. Do any of you think the old Tigers can win?
Ooh, probably not.
No.
It's 13th versus 14th, fellas. Like, come on, it's down the bottom there. No, it's not, is it? It's not, is it? This is going to be a hammering.
I think we're starting to see the beginning of Penrith to make a run. They have been quite poor to start the year, but they're getting better each week, I think, and a couple of their losses and even the draw against the Cowboys were games that they should have won. They had won. And Nathan Cleary is he's on one at the moment. He is playing just lights out footy. Played really well for the Blues and came out and was just involved in everything Penrith did. He kicked Parramatta to death last week. And he was the difference between the two sides.
Yep. This will be the captain game. I'm assuming most people have their captain playing this game. May or Cleary? Go to me.
Stafford Toa, actually.
Right.
The Cowboy Killer.
Yeah, the Cowboy Killer.
I am actually leaning Nathan Cleary.
Close.
There's obviously like a million reasons why that could be a bad idea. I mean, I already have lost 100 points this season from captaining Nathan Cleary. I'd be second, by the way, if I didn't do that. But I think
I didn't catch what you said over you sucking your own dick. Can you repeat that?
I said even I make mistakes. No, but in all seriousness, this could be the type of game. Nathan tends to have one game a year where he scores a hat trick and just absolutely blitzes the other team. That could very well be this game. You look at that Tigers lineup, and man, it is bad. Like, who the fuck are these players on their bench? Who's Kittler, Leahy, and Charlie Murray? Like, does anyone know who these guys are?
No.
Tony Suka's starting on an edge. Sione Fainu is starting in the middle, and while he's an okay bench prop, like, he's coming up against Lindsay Smith, Moses Leota, and Isaiah Yeo. Like, this could be a really messy game for the Tigers. Like, this could be Cleary with 10 goals and 2 tries and 3 try assists. Like, I think this has the makings of the highest score of the season if Penrith can actually turn up.
Interesting.
I am actually leaning your way as well. I am leaning Cleary at the moment just because this looks like another game to what happened with Terrell May against the Storm when they got absolutely blitzed, and it just wasn't as good a performance as it could have been. I know that there's a lot of thought that Terrell May will play 80 minutes because of how bad this forward pack looks. And I think that's likely, but I think there's also a real concern that he just won't play as many minutes because they're getting absolutely humped to death.
Yeah, well, I think. Look, he's going to play like 70 minimum. He hasn't played less than 70 minutes since round 3. But
But if there was a
yeah,
round 2 to play less, this would probably be one of them. Saying that they have the bye next week, so
well, the concern is also that Penrith take advantage of him like Melbourne did, and very few teams have actually done it to him. But late in games, he is a bit sloppy at marker, and you saw Munster have like 3 line breaks against him late in that game. If Penrith do something similar, and Cleary's been running a lot lately, he could have a few more missed tackles than he typically does.
So we still got Heath Mason named at 6, Latu at 14. Late change, you think, there?
I don't know if they'll do it this week. The concern with Latu is that he has really, really bad hamstrings, like a long history now, and he's only young, so it says a bit of hamstring issues. So I think, given this is his first week back, they're probably easing him into it a bit. So I do think he'll probably start on the bench, and Heath Mason had a good game against the Cowboys. Well, he missed a shitload of tackles, but he gave it a real crack, had a bunch of tackle breaks, even scored a nice try. So, they're going to give the kid a run and see how he goes. I was listening to another podcast today, actually, and apparently they see him as a bit of a 6 as well, or he has a history of playing 6, and that he's only played fullback as he's sort of gotten older, but he was more of a 6 when he was younger. So it could also be that they're considering playing him at 6 for the rest of the year. I'm not sure, but the 8 missed tackles has to be a concern.
Yeah. Not an option as a cash down, Heath?
You'd be brave. I'm certainly not endorsing it, but
that doesn't get the Jay-Z tick of approval, that one?
Speaking of Jay-Z tick of approvals, can I ask you a question, Jay-Z?
Yeah, but let me just answer Bryce's question first, mate. Let me say, like, I sort of have an image of being like a crazy pod player. I'm actually really conservative when it comes to trading in players, especially ones where I'm not sure of their role. And that's why I'll never trade in like a Heath Mason and I'm really iffy or 50-50 on guys like Nathan Lawson because I actually am more conservative. A lot of fantasy for me is just making less mistakes than other people. And if you're just making consistently good decisions, not even necessarily excellent decisions, then you tend to just keep scoring well while other people have down weeks and then up weeks. And as long as you're consistently scoring well, you'll end up with a pretty good rank.
And it also depends on how many people are bringing these players in. Like, as you're saying before, sometimes it's more dangerous just not to follow the crowd.
Exactly.
Anyway,
really, what was your question, mate?
Speaking of consistently good decisions and avoiding mistakes, how's Liam Henry going this week?
I don't actually think he's named this week. No. Did you see a different team list or something?
Oh fuck! I must be looking at Lindsay Smith. My bad. That's so close.
Right.
Hey man, look, if my worst decision is trading in someone that scored 39, then hey,
that's not bad. At least it's not bringing in Adam Dewey for 1 week and then trading him out the next week.
And then he's scoring a 50.
To be fair, I did that last year with Blaise Talungi. I think I had him for 1 week and he was out the next. So I'm not immune to making mistakes.
Right. So, who are you going to captain, Ridley?
I think I'm leaning Cles for the moment, but I'm sure this will come something that I'll make at the last minute on Thursday nights.
Now, a secret about it's a long weekend, right? On long weekends, I like to enjoy myself, and sometimes I like to disconnect. So on Thursday night, I will be going out of town for 5 days. I will have no phone reception whatsoever. I'll be locking my team in, and when I get back, I'll have this lovely surprise on what I'm going to do. So I too will be locking in Nathan Cleary, because when I get back Monday night for the Bulldogs-Eels game, which is next, it'll be a surprise what happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Bulldogs Eels game, no Lachlan Galvin. He's named at 23.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to change a team that's coming first. Like, as good as Galvin is, I mean, you'd have to see them performing badly before he overtakes like a Sexton or a Burton or a Reid Marnie for whatever reason. It wouldn't surprise me if he came onto the bench, but I don't think he'll be starting in the halves this week.
Other than that, it's pretty much the same 17. That's the players that they've got out, obviously, and they've got a lot of players out. Josh Curran, I've seen a few people looking at him, but it's an 80-minute role for this week, and then Preston's back. So,
yeah, and he's not even necessarily guaranteed 80 minutes this week. It might only be 70. Like most of the time when he starts on an edge, he doesn't actually play 80 minutes. If you look at rounds 4 and 5, he played 72 and 69. So it's he's just a bit too expensive for what he's going to do over the period. Reid Marnie, unfortunate that you bought him, but you just got to hope that he continues getting the minutes. And
yeah. If he ends up like a 60-minute player, I am going to just fry him. If I come back Monday night and he's played 60 minutes, it's bad news bears for me.
Yeah, it's true, but who knows? Maybe he plays 80 minutes for the next 5 weeks and averages 50 for you. So I wouldn't write that off.
So, well, the 80-minute hooker that's going to average 50 is Riley Smith, right?
Well, he's not an 80-minute hooker, but
Yeah.
he's scoring 50 every week. He's been one of the finds of the season for Parramatta. Like, he's actually a really good player. And he was playing like third grade preseason. Had a good game against Penrith, has 4 50s in his last 5 games, and Josh Papali'i is no longer in the 17. So unless Hopgood spends time at hooker, he might be back to an 80-minute hooker this week. So I wouldn't be in a rush to sell him. And if you can make do in round 15 and 18 without having to sell him, well, maybe he's good enough to keep for a while.
Keep as your backup until he starts tanking money or something. He loses that 80-minute, the big minute roll. Like, yeah.
I don't think he will, though. I think he's playing too well.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. What's he averaging? 40-odd tackles a game or something? It's pretty ridiculous. So he's definitely got a big base on him.
For
sure. Anybody else in this game? I think so.
Burden is getting really close to. Oh, I want to bring him in, but I can't afford it this week.
He's around 15 decision for me.
Yeah. He'd be really nice to have. I don't think I can get to him in round 15 unless. Yeah, I just can't get to him in round 15 at the moment. Unless I do something weird. But I like Burton. I think he's at least 10 points underpriced, to be honest. And could be a cut price keeper. He's priced at 41 for the time being.
The emergence of Savala as like a decent scorer for me has really tempered my need to get Matt Burton next week.
Who's your half? Was you got ICAT?
I got ICAT, so I'll be playing ICAT and Savala as long as he's named and we don't have some miracle recovery from Walker. I expect Walker to play a few games in reserve grade before he actually comes back in A grade as well.
I like what's expect that. I'm playing Savala and LKT next week, which I'm not thrilled about.
Well,
but I don't think it's worth blowing a trade just to get LKT. I just can't get LKT to Burton without making another trade. And unless there's a really good reason for me to do that next week, I think I'm just going to cop however many points it will be a loss to play LCAT over someone like Matty Burton. I think just a reality of what the buy rounds are going to be, which is going to suck. But yeah, it is what it is.
Do you have Sharp?
I do, but I don't have an addition. Actually, I could potentially put Sharp into half. No, I can't. No, I can't do it. Don't have enough depth at wing fullback.
Then you buy someone.
Yeah, my plan is to buy Tedesco next week and move Sharp into my halves. So I have Savala and Sharp in the halves, and then Teddy, Drinky, and Garrick in the wing fullback. So my options are still kind of open. And Burton actually is really interesting. I even if Galvin takes a bit away from him, he'll still be the goal kicker, and I think he still will have the lion's share of the kick meters. I haven't looked at what the breakdown of the last few weeks have been in terms of Burton and Sexton, but I actually think Galvin might take a bigger backseat in the kick meter department than Sexton did for a while. So
I agree with you.
I will take serious consideration into Burton.
Yeah, so Burton's still got majority of the kick meters, like 350 compared to Sexton's 160 last week. And that was the most Sexton's kicked since Burton came back.
Galvin's been kicking more this year with Luai, but I don't know how well that will translate to Burton instead of Luai, because Luai's kicking game isn't exactly strong, whereas Burton's long distance kicking game is definitely up there with the best in the comp.
Good.
I got a feeling Galvin's kicking game will end up being more close to the line and attacking. That's my gut feel on it. I think that Burton is a really good buy now, and if Galvin ends up taking the spot from Sexton, he's probably a better buy.
Burton is a good buy. I'm not gonna say no.
Yeah, he's been a bit cursed this season, to be honest. Like, he's had injuries and head knocks when he looked like he was on for a big score and just a bunch of random shit like that. But you're sort of banking on the Dogs to continue being a top 4 team, which, like, by all means they should be, unless Galvin completely, tips the apple cart. But it's hard. It's hard to see Galvin really having that much of a negative impact. As much as Toby Sexton has been good for the Bulldogs, he plays a bit of a bit part role for the team as is. So I'm not sure. Like, if Galvin is as good of an attacking player as he was for periods at the Tigers, then they might get better and not worse. And if they're rolling sides all the time, then Burton's definitely going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I agree. Still might pull the trigger on Burton if something happens to Zavala, as I said. But yeah.
Last person to win this game, Karaz. Fucking back how many weeks early? A fucking month early by my count.
3 was, I think.
Around 17.
Yeah.
It was like 16 at the earliest, is what they said.
16's a buy, so it's meant to be around 17 return.
Well, there you go.
Wolverine blood in him. So yeah, he's back 3 weeks early.
Oh man, if you could get him this week, would you get him?
No.
I think calves are too risky. Especially when you've come back early from one. It just seems like a bit of a recipe for disaster. And I sort of said this in the preseason about him, is that apart from last season, he's had a lot of injury interrupted sort of years. And so even though he is a phenomenal player and a fantastic fantasy scorer, there will always be that little bit of doubt. So for me, I'm not considering him until round 18 because, like we've pointed out a few times already, we're in dire straits for wing fullbacks in round 18. So I'll strongly consider him then. But for the time being, I'm just going to hate watch him and hope he doesn't score 100 points again against Parramatta.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm just going to let him slip through the keeper until 18, maybe even 17. We'll see how we go.
He's also quite expensive.
Yeah, if he does,
he's expensive.
I mean, 48 break even. He's probably going to hit that. So I don't expect him to get cheaper, but yeah, he's definitely.
But he's the same price as Teddy, and Teddy has a much cleaner run.
He does.
After this week. I think they've got a buy in 17, but I won't have Zavala by that point. I might not even have Toya by that point. So Teddy might be my legitimately only rooster.
Yeah.
So that's why Teddy's in my plans.
I still got Nawa, I still got Teddy, still got Zavala, so maybe Nawa even makes way or something like that, because that's a decent upgrade. 140 odd, 150 odd K. So that's something I can definitely look at. One thing we're not going to lack this year is squad value. We're going to have money in our squads. So I think these 700k players are a little bit easier to get, to be perfectly honest. Just about finding the cash counts and finding the right ones.
Yeah, for sure. But a lot of the guys we're targeting, like your Campbells and your Prestons, are very expensive.
Yep.
And then throw in what your final squad wants to look like, and you'll probably also be looking at guys like Tino, guys like Carrigan, who are also in that sort of upper price range, and Isaiah Yo's another one as well. They're all 770 and above.
Yeah.
So if you make like tactical decisions to go like a Burton, for example, like what this pod has almost done in my head is maybe I go Burton instead of Teddy, and I keep Sharp and wing fullbacks so that I can upgrade my mids instead of having Tedesco, who is a good scorer but not as good of a scorer as those middle forwards are.
Yeah, that's a fair point because Sharp's no slouch. It's not like you need to trade. You need to trade Sharp out to upgrade him. He's keeper.
No, exactly right.
Yeah. So, any last words, Ridley?
I hope the Cowboys do us all a favour and knock Storm out of the 8.
Here's to praying, brother.
No, out of the 4. Maybe a bit ambitious. They're out of the 8.
I was going to say, even if they lose, I don't think they're out of the 8.
I don't think they're not even out of the 4 if they lose, but one can dream, okay? I'm hoping Cows actually just go and break the legs of every spine member of the Storm.
Yeah. None of that. JC?
I just hope everyone has a good time, except Ridley.
Yeah. I hope you all enjoy an amazing weekend of rugby league. As I said, I'm going away. I'm not going to watch any games next week. So my Tuesday, which I've taken off from work, is going to be watching replays. But enjoy the weekend of football. Thanks for listening. We promise you a quick podcast, Ridley. Hour and 15 minutes, mate. We absolutely smashed it out. So talk soon, mate.
PB.